everybody. Happy Wednesday. Here I am. Was trying to get ready to go live. These live streams I have to put on makeup and stuff, and it's going to be recorded, and people are going to watch this, and it's live. So here I am just talking about nothing. Anyway, happy Wednesday. Thanks for joining me on Live with Liz. Today we are talking about crafting attorney bios. Do you have an attorney bio? If you're a lawyer watching this, you probably already have one. You're like, oh, I already have one. No, okay, think about it. What is your attorney bio? Why is it important? Why do you need to keep these up to date? Well, there are a lot of reasons, but the most important reason that you want to spend some time with your attorney bio, making it something that reflects your personality, introduces who you are, is because you're considering your client journey and how they find you and how they hire you. And the people who are reading this, as much as you might be thinking you're writing them for your high school buddies or your Facebook friends or maybe for your mom, you're actually writing them for your potential clients and your current clients who need to trust and verify, figure out who you are. When they're looking for you, these are the people who are going to be reading your attorney bios, and that's why you want to think about who they are and where they're going to be reading them. So there are some considerations when you're getting to the task of drafting what your attorney bio looks like. And remembering your audience is the first one. Then you have to think about the platform and where they're going to be reading it. And then you have to think about the structure and the content. Let's see. Oops. I don't know what I'm doing. Sorry. Figuring out StreamYard is fun. Okay. After this is over, if I forget to tell you later, I want you to take out your attorney bio and I want you to just read it out loud. If you've got kids or if you've got a friend or even some stuffed animals, of course they can't talk back, but just read it out loud to them, to your friends, and see what they think about it so that you know that you're writing this for kind of the average Joe, but also think about it in terms of your client. Now, the platforms where attorney bios can be found are varied. There are tons of different ways that you're going to write about who you are, whether it's on social media, whether it's on your website, your firm's website, whether it's on a directories listing, or even just snippets that are found online and even in print. So there are a lot of different places where your bio appears. In these different places where your bio appears, there are a lot of different limitations and opportunities. So if you're on social media, you've got a lot of different sizes of your bio. If you're on Twitter, you just get a little glimpse or a window into who you are, and maybe it's not a professional bio, maybe that's just your personal bio. But if it's still you, you have to consider that that is a part of your brand and that people can find you there. You also have to consider your voice and your consistency across those different channels where people do find you. So are you on Instagram? Are you one of the few brave souls who's on TikTok? Is there a snippet about you somewhere? And is that snippet relatable to the rest of the bios that you have out and about? And of course, your website bios and your social media bios are going to be a little bit different in structure and in content. So this is the third thing. The first thing we think about is our audience. The second thing we think about is the platform. And the third thing we think about is structure and content. So on LinkedIn, for example, you're looking at a longer opportunity to, hey, Ahu. Oh, that's a great question. So let me just post this. This is a really great question. Some attorneys are adding hobbies to their professional bios. Is it too much? No, that's a very good question. And I would get there, but actually when you're thinking about drafting these, you want to connect with people and you want to feel like you're a person. They want to know that you're not just some robot attorney who they can't relate to. So adding your hobbies can actually be a way of connecting with other people. And it can give insight into you actually just being a person and having a life, and that's relatable. And so those are good qualities to include, especially on social media, maybe not as much on your website, but I would include them on a website nowadays. You also do have that consideration, though, of keeping the bio short. And that's also very important. Regardless of the channel, you want it to be brief because you only have a few seconds to capture people. So if you've only got 6 seconds to to make an impression on someone who might hire you for legal services, you definitely want to make sure that you're utilizing the space, the design, the content, your number of words wisely. That doesn't mean you can't include your hobbies, though. That's a great way to connect with people. So I would say it depends on the platform, on the consistency of your voice, and what else you're doing to connect with people. But yes, I would say regularly it is now recommended, maybe not required, but recommended to include something like a hobby or some sort of personal connection to someone to give an insight into who you are. So great question, Ahu. Thanks for asking that. There are differences, obviously, between what you're going to include on LinkedIn, like your hobbies, and what you're going to include on your website. So if you're focusing on the website first, which is incredibly important, this is where people are going to purchase legal services. If they're considering your firm, they are going to check out lawyer and attorney bios on your firm's website. And this is where you need team consistency. So your personal brand voice might not be as prominent on your website. That's okay. The website bios tend to be a little more formal. They should be. This is the professional setting. It's like they're visiting your online office, so it's okay for them to be a little more formal. We are still quite casual in our formalities here in the US, so you might start all of them. A big difference also between website and social is that on the websites, they're generally in third person, and in social media, we've really gotten away from the third person because it misses that personal connection. So on your website, it's going to be in third person, and you might have an introduction with someone's full name where you're findable, but then reference them in using their first name. And that first name also, instead of saying, oh, Mr. or Mrs., you end up making that personal connection just by using a first name as well. And then you really want to show people who you are and demonstrate what you're all about. But the first thing that you have to include is what you do and who you do it for. And this is something that can be missed if you're just focusing on, oh, she got this degree here and she got this degree here and she has this qualification and this qualification. And then you kind of miss the whole point that you want to get across in just those few seconds. That is what you do, your practice areas, the industries you serve, whom you're doing this for. And that's really important. When I was in-house and searching for outside counsel, I would certainly read these attorney bios, and I would try and figure out if they're qualified for the work that I had to send to them, number one, and number two, if they're successful, if they're capable of doing it well. And these are things that you can glean from a well-written attorney bio if it's included. But a lot of people overlook it and they don't want to give specifics. It's okay not to mention exactly who a client is, but it's important to say right off the bat what the practice areas are, what the skill sets include, and whom they're for. Because when I'm doing a search, I'm always looking for attorney. Maybe I need someone who can handle litigation or intellectual property or something like that. So I might search intellectual property litigation attorney, and then you might also be searching for an industry, especially if you're in one that has specific regulations. So if you're automotive, you might be looking for automotive counsel. You might be looking for oil and gas counsel. You might be looking for biotech attorney. And so these key terms that define what kind of work you do and who you do it for should be included in your bio too. And if you're doing international work, so if your clients are coming from outside of your jurisdiction, if you're in the United States and you're representing clients from another country, or you're in another country and you're representing clients from elsewhere, you want to also make sure you include your jurisdiction in your bio with the keyword. That is something that people often forget to do. And hey, Leah, yeah, you're right. If you're running short on characters, the bios are the first thing to go. The hobbies are the first thing to go. So that's a good point. Yeah. And so you really want to make sure that you're getting across the essential information and then also including your hook where possible. And that's really the crux of reaching people with your bio and conducting these exercises that make them valuable. And speaking of value, that's the other thing you want to include. So you want to make sure that you're including obviously what you do, who you do it for, and then the success that you have. So if you can't give a specific example in the limited characters that you have available, you might want to include something in a formulaic way, like a testimonial. And this can be used not only on your website, but also in certain places on directories, which it can be part of their structure, or even on LinkedIn where they have recommendations. So your bio on LinkedIn has a section for recommendations. If you don't have recommendations or those endorsements, don't be afraid to ask your clients for those. And it could be another reason to reach out and say, hey, I really loved this work that we did together. It was a really great case. Would you mind just posting a quick recommendation for me on my LinkedIn? That would be great. Thanks. They don't usually mind. And actually, a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I would be happy to do that for you. Of course, you're a great lawyer. I want to hire you again. You're awesome. So don't be afraid to reach out and ask for those testimonials. And even on your website, you might have testimonials on your homepage, but people sometimes forget that you can include them on your attorney bio pages too. And you might have it structured so that you've got that brief story about who the attorney is, the practice areas, the industry they work for, and then some bullet points of the highlights to keep it brief. I love bullet points. They're your friends. Bullet points are wonderful. And then you might have another section where you have your education listed to the side or separately. You have your foreign languages listed to the side or separately. This can be helpful to keep the focus on the attorney bio and let you include what's most important so you don't get distracted, because people are not as interested in where you got your law degree, especially if they don't know your country or your place. They're not as interested in, all of the different designations that you necessarily have if they don't know what they are. And so those should and still be recognized and included, but you might want to just do that in a side section where you keep it consistent with each person. And then in the attorney bio, you could have one or two testimonial statements, recommendations. Those can add a lot of value and demonstrate your value to your potential clients when they see current client comments in a place that connects them with who you are. So just to kind of recap the most important things when we're talking about crafting the bio: number one, remembering our audience and their client journey and who you're talking to. Number two, considering your platform and what the limitations are, taking advantage of the full structure and what's possible, and making sure that you have some consistency throughout these channels in your brand voice. Number three, structuring content and remembering that while you're trying to achieve this consistency and trying to have this brand voice across channels, you're also cognizant of the fact that there are different expectations for different platforms. And so your website, people have certain expectations of what they want to see. They want to see a little bit more on your website in terms of what you're doing, a little bit more about the firm in general, a little bit more about the team, a little bit more about your education and skill set. And on social media, it's lighter. It's more casual, it's more direct, it's often shorter, but you still want to capture people's attention. You still want to have some sort of consistency about who you are. So don't be afraid. And if your law firm is dictating exactly how your bio needs to appear, make sure that you're giving updated information, and you can even make recommendations to your team to kind of amplify these and make them a little bit better than they were before. I keep seeing some that are like, Joe Schmo, even on LinkedIn, Joe Schmo is a great attorney, he's a great litigator, blah, blah, blah. Well, why? And, he wins cases. Really? What kind of cases? For whom? I don't know. So, it's okay to brag a little. It's okay to be humble, but these third person written by a machine bios that a lot of attorneys still have, not only on their websites, but even in LinkedIn, where you can tell it was some marketing person, they lose that personal connection. And if you don't have some sort of hook with them, if you don't have some sort of way to connect with people, then you could lose out on the business. And that's really the reason to do this, because a great attorney bio can really make you successful, and a bad attorney bio could make you lose business that you didn't even know you had the possibility to have. Hey, Mariana, great to see you. So if you have any questions about your attorney bio, or you want to go through the exercise together with us, just shoot us an email at solutions@firmforward.com or reach out to us on social, and we'll be happy to go through that with you, chat over some coffee, on a Zoom call, and we'll have fun with it. It's these are actually a lot of fun to do, and then we get to know each other and ask all sorts of weird questions about what to include and not to include. Why not? So join me next week on Live with Liz. It's great to see everyone every week, and be well. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye, everybody.